This is episode 34 of the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. In this episode, JK and I will discuss compromise running. And is it a thing or is it just running? Additionally, when you don't have time to work out, what can you do? And easy pace. Do you do that in zone 1 or zone 2? As well as some wall ball station tips. Who's the best wall baller in the world? DekaFit World Championships that happened this past weekend, and a little bit of my Lauren Love Corner. Let's make hybrid fitness work for you. How's it going today, JK?
I'm well, thank you, Anthony. How are you going?
I'm good. Doing well.
Big week for you guys.
It was a big week. I'm sure if you guys all pay attention to Lauren's stories or her stuff, you might see we moved. But we'll get a little bit into that. And maybe release it. But today we're going to cover a couple topics. JK, how long do you have?
Got about an hour.
Okay.
About an hour.
Got about
and
an
5
hour.
minutes.
All right, perfect. So we're going to cover a couple topics. First of all, one that I know people have asked for JK's opinion on. So I don't have any notes on this. I just have it as a topic header for things we're going to talk about. No notes after it. So it's going to be a freestyle talking about, and that is compromised running. We're going to talk about some of the things I did while packing up a whole house and with very little time. How do you keep fit? What do you keep doing, right? In order to not get stagnant or fall out of a rhythm. And then we're also going to talk about zone 1 and zone 2. What do you run for easy runs? Does it matter? Of course, the answer is always it depends. And we got some requests to give out some station tips. So we had some people ask us, hey, what kind of tips do you guys have for each station in a HYROX? And so that's something we'll address, but we're going to do one at a time. So we're going to work backwards order, one station at a time, just our best coaching tips for each station, how to improve at it, kind of points of performance and that kind of stuff. And then I got a wonderful message from someone saying, I love your wife. I love hearing about her and what she's doing. If you can have just more information about what Lauren's doing on your podcast sometimes. So I got a little Lauren Love Corner that I'll go into. Just short, but if you guys want to hear about Lauren, I could talk literally every single week for hours and hours in a podcast just about her. So I have a multitude of topics on that. And yeah, so we're going to get into it. Guys, if you do get the opportunity and you've been liking this podcast, please go rate it and follow. We appreciate it. All the help we can get to get it out to more people. We just want to help people, and we think it'd be a great way to go about it. JK, how's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good, thank you, Anthony. Pretty big week of training. It's Friday here, Friday AM, and so I've got today and tomorrow, and then a rest day. Yeah, just a stock standard week leading into Vegas here. So no, I'm feeling good actually. Feeling good, moving well, running well. I don't know what else to say.
All right, that's perfect. I wanted to ask you, last time since we've last talked, it's Melbourne happened, that Melbourne race. That's in your neck of the woods, and I know you weren't there, but was there anything from there you wanted to talk about? Anything you saw from your athlete?
It was obviously like a great end of the year for like the hybrid and HYROX scene down here. And no, I wasn't there. I did have FOMO slightly, but it just looked like a fantastic event. And I'll be completely honest, as much as it wasn't all to do with Tia Claire Toomey racing, but I think it did obviously present more eyeballs, and I know for a fact that she absolutely loved it. She absolutely loved it, and enjoyed the whole experience, the HYROX experience. And everyone here who's done a HYROX or has been to an event, you understand that it is an experience. It's not just about the race; it's the whole box and dice of the whole weekend. So I heard the Melbourne race went very well. Really good way to cap off the year. Um, and the next one down here is in Auckland, actually, which is the same weekend as Vegas. Um, so I think that's actually the second. No, there's one event that is prior to that to kickstart the year, and I think that's Manchester. And then there's the Vegas and Auckland weekend. So, so yeah, mate. No, all good down here, and yeah, it's crazy. Every man and their dog are doing high rocks now in Australia. It's really blown up.
So, quick question. How do you know? Because you said you know for a fact that Tia loved the race.
I bumped into, like, I live probably 5 minutes away from where they live uh, when they live in Australia, right? Obviously, they bunk. I think where's Proven headquarters? Tennessee.
Yeah, I think it's in
Um,
Tennessee, somewhere outside
so
Nashville or
yeah,
something.
Nashville,
Yeah.
yeah. Nashville, Tennessee, and they pretty much spend most of their year there, right? But when they come back to Australia, which is for a couple of months, they live here on the Sunshine Coast. And I bumped into Shane at a coffee shop the other day, and actually like just after the event on Wednesday, and he was raving about it and raving about how much Tia loved it, and um, yeah, so not that I know exactly, and they probably don't know because they probably are thinking about planning their year of events and CrossFit and whatnot. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tia and James do another double soon, or um, so yeah, I just yeah. Shane was, and also Shane was very intrigued, very curious about learning about the training as well. So yeah,
Nice.
that's why.
So we'll keep an eye out for that. All right, let's get into our first topic for today. We had somebody ask us on our last Q&A that we didn't get to the question in time, but it was about compromised running. They just want to know, basically to start with, JK, what are your thoughts on running? And while you do that, I'm going to actually look the question up. So you just start out, but if
Sure.
anybody wants to know, if you want to know, I think where this came from, uh, if you go to the Amsterdam Major, HYROX Amsterdam on YouTube, and you look up the live stream, if you go to 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 10 seconds into the event, into that video that's posted on HYROX's YouTube, you will hear an interview with James Kelly, my co-host here. And the first thing he asked is, uh, have you been working on your compromise running, or how's your compromise running? And what was your answer, JK? Why don't you give us a little reenactment of that?
I just said, Greg, compromise running is a myth. It doesn't exist. Uh, I can't really remember what I ended up saying after that, but that's what I said. It's a myth.
You said
Um,
compromise running doesn't exist. It's just running.
it's just running. There you go. There you go. I mean, the question for the audience or the listeners, right? If compromise running was a thing, if it was a thing, it, every time you run, you'd be compromised in my head because as soon as you start running, you're compromised. Like, right? So what what I believe, and in my opinion, what I believe due to my training and my coaching, thanks to Anthony, is that uh, due to my ability to flush out lactate, I've been able to build up such a tolerance to any other modality and any other um, type of movement that I'm able to run. I'm able to get back up to speed very quickly. Now, going back to it though, like compromise running for the individual, it depends. It depends on where you've come from. I've done a lot of running in the past, so I'm able to trust my fitness to um, be really aggressive after stations. I think, like, to sum this up though, um, is compromise running a thing versus is it just running? Well, in my head, I'll be honest, it's just running to me because of my fitness. And you're you get to a point, or you should try to get to a point, and this is the whole purpose of training for an event like HYROX, is you get to a point where you just trust your body, you trust your fitness in no matter what you do, whether it is the running component or the stations, you trust yourself that you'll be able to flush out that lactate or get back on that running speed um, as quickly as possible. And that's the reason why probably that question came up. And also, probably you see that I do take the rock zone or pretty aggressive because I just trust my fitness. Um, yeah, I'll leave it there for now. Anthony, thoughts,
So
concerns?
yeah, so the compromised running, the question that we actually got was, would the person would love to hear your opinion on compromised running and whether it's actually a thing or just a thrown around term. Additionally, after that question is, when is overspeed running useful? How to pace runs in GPPs and other tangential thoughts. So we'll just go off on that a little bit. Compromised running. Compromised running is just basically how proficient is your running economy. Um, are you able to run efficiently with like your top form, your top speed, your velocity at anaerobic threshold? Can you do that under fatigue? Right. So it depends, like, what is the term compromised running? Is it just like, oh, I'm doing something else, so I have to run when I'm not fresh or doing running as my only thing. There's lots of sports where basically tons of sports where like running isn't the only thing you do. Playing soccer or rugby or football or like
Yeah,
baseball has you have to run around the base like so there's running while doing other sports and almost every other sport we do, right? You got to
yeah,
run. And so it's just having that ability to run. It comes down to your running economy. How proficient are you when you're using different muscular systems, when you're switching in and out of different energy systems, when like I'm running and I get out of that repetitive motion, do something else, how quickly can I come back to my running form, my ability to run, right? That's really all it is. And so like when you hear compromise running, I agree. Like, is it really the term? Like, what is it referring to? Because are we compromised running if you're a wide receiver in American football that goes out for a route on every single offensive play where you're running 50 yards and stopping or something? Like, if you go on a slant route or a corner or something, like they go out, they run, they jog back, right? They got to go
yeah,
fast because that's their speed. And yes, it's a different type of running. It's more anaerobic. It's shorter sprints, but like running under duress happens in every sport we do. That's why like there's strength and conditioning, right? So
yeah,
um, when you come to compromise running, it's basically just your running economy. How well can you
yeah.
do it
Agreed.
later in the game, later in the race? That's all it really is. Uh, basically, when you're in a hybrid race, all these hybrid races right now, DekaFit, HYROX, they have running as the basis, which I think is absolutely vital. And CrossFit has running in several of their workouts. Like you go back to earlier CrossFit games, they had an event called triple threes where you'd row a three
Yeah.
kilometer, do 300 double unders, and then run for 3 miles. Is that not running under duress, right? That would be considered, I guess, compromised running because you have to run your, if your running economy is not good after you row and after you double under, like it's going to break down and you're going to just be way less efficient. So your ability to switch in and out of energy systems is vital. Uh,
Mm.
you need to be able to
That's
cross
a big
that
one.
line
Yeah.
between anaerobic and aerobic, going back and forth. You need to play hopscotch with the anaerobic aerobic line, right? You need to be able to go back and forth because we're going in and out of our stations. We're going in and out of different energy systems. But realistically, like no matter what you call it, I mean, I understand it's running is running. Like you played Australian rules football, right? Where in Aussie rules football, that every run you did was run, stop, kick a ball, like move
Well,
around, like slam somebody with your body, like
tackle,
so much
jump up.
that,
Yep.
yeah, tackle, jump, like there's so many other things you're doing that you're not just purely running. You're not just stuck in your running form. So it's not compromised running. That's why I understand when you say it's just running, because that's what you've been used to. That's what you do. Like it was just running. That's all you ever
Yeah.
had it as. But that's why we do our threshold workouts. That's why I love to do our threshold workouts. We usually do them a little bit faster than you're doing it in the race. Uh, but what threshold does is it gets you more reps at the stride you're going to use in this race, right? So you get thousands and thousands of steps now at this speed. Instead, if you try to go faster, maybe your stride length's a little different, like
Yeah.
it's
Efficiencies
not, the efficiency
off.
is a little bit off. If you try to go faster, you're not getting as many steps in at the stride for a shorter duration, right? Because of the way we do thresholds, where we're slower than like this maximum pace, we're able to go for long durations. Usually we go from anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. You're able to do these long durations, get lots and lots of reps at that stride in, and then you can still go do other things because it's not
Yeah.
breaking you down, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why we love threshold and why we do it for this hybrid fitness, because it translates almost the best of any other type of functionality we found.
Definitely. Yeah. 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 And just on this note, obviously, like the question was to do with myself and probably that interview, right, saying that compromise running is a myth, whatever. Here's something for the listeners, and I don't think I've explained this, but I was compromise running weekend every weekend from the ages of 10 to 18. I I ran cross country race on Friday afternoon, 5 mile, 8 kilometers on Friday afternoon. The next morning, I'd back up and play a rugby game for school. And then the next day, I'd play an Aussie rules football game on the Sunday. And I look back at those times. It's my childhood was the best. I just used to play sport after sport, run. If that wasn't compromised running, I know we're breaking and having a sleep, but if that's not compromised running, I don't know what is. You've got to look back at what you've come from as well, and not just the thresholds that I'm doing as well. Obviously, that's very congruent with what we're doing with HYROX right now. But moral of the story is that um, yeah, like compromise running is not a thing because, as you just said, with examples of football, rugby, basketball, it's just running and sport,
Yeah.
um, so to speak.
Well, so I think the original term that coined it came from Bracken and Kirk on the Running Public, and there you have a running background. So they go through and do it. But like when you hear us refer to it, well, we probably aren't going to call it compromise running. It's just your running economy. It's probably what the intention, the goal of it was, is how well do you run under duress, right?
Mm,
And that comes from so many different sports, so many different fitness backgrounds, that if you are a run centric focused coach, I could see it as like, here's my running, here's all the things that compromise my running or hinder my running. So how do I run after doing those things? Like that's, I understand as a primary focus, you know? Um,
yeah,
Whereas, I mostly just see it as what is your running economy switching in and out of these energy systems? How well do
yeah,
you hold on to your form? How well do you hit your strides, hit your speeds you need to? How much effort does it take you to maintain the same speed later in the race?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Compromise running. What's that? There's another term that people use as well. I can't. Sorry, I can't remember. Um, but yeah, no, it's an interesting one. How like just quickly, just to wrap it up, like how many if you're training for a HYROX, the answer is going to be it depends. But how many runs a week would you be compromised running? And or it's funny because I'm saying it's not a thing, but how many runs a week would you be doing a run where it's like running and other modalities? And then how many runs a week would you be doing just running?
So, we'll get to how often you should be running actually later in this episode when we talk about our easy runs. We'll talk about like the different benefits of those, but compromise running or what you said, like how often should you be mixing it with other stuff, is that's what we refer to as our GPP, right? Where you are, it's the glue. We build, like I've said this before, at least when I program and I coach, I build everything in a silo. How good are you at running? How good are you at wall balls? How good are you at this lift, at this thing? Like everything's in its
Yep.
own vertical, right? But then we get to GPP. GPP is where we blend it. Like, okay, you're this good
Yeah.
at running, you're this good at this. What can you do together? Like, does that go down, or how much of this maximum ability that you have while doing it solo can you maintain while doing
Yeah.
it together? Right. So that's what we look at our GPP. And that's actually finishing out the question that we got is when is overspeed running useful? How to pace runs in GPP and other tangential thoughts. When I talk about runs and GPPs, I would say you want to, most of the time, our GPPs are not like CrossFit workouts where you're going all out for this and you lay in a puddle of sweat dead on the floor afterwards. That's not the intention of it. It's to blend the movements and understand, like, oh, I can go this hard on this and this hard on this, and this affects me this way, right? So that you can learn your
Yeah.
body more and more. Oh, I can do 60 thrusters unbroken with a barbell when I'm fresh, but in this workout, I couldn't get past 20, like
Yeah.
when you start to understand those things, you can see how different movements affect you because each person is individual. So it depends. Our science experiment is just you. You are the one person, right? That's you're learning about yourself, and you can take in information that applies to other people, but until you apply it to yourself, you don't know how your body specifically will react to it, what it needs, right? So
Yeah.
as much as like I can guide you as a coach, as much as I can guide, here's what works for others, here's how we do this. Like that's why working together, you and I, JK, like I get your feedback and I'm like, okay, well, for JK, this doesn't work. Oh, this works really well. Oh, he doesn't need to do like that's kind of the stuff we do. And so people that are following their own programs and other things, they need to make sure that they're reaching that ability to, hey, I'm in tune with this is what I need, this is what works. And oh, look, I did this workout and I found something. That's always the
Yeah.
goal. Like, ooh, I found something. I found something I can work on. I found something that like this kills me. I didn't expect that. Or I just the other day I got a message from an athlete I coached that said, oh my God, my grip is horrible. This workout, I had to rest 20, 30 seconds between each movement because of like my forearms couldn't hold. And I was like, see, we do a lot of farmer carries and stuff,
Yep.
but the person was unable to keep holding. So they're very specific in tune with their farmer carry grip and being able to hold it, but their overall grip is not, their foundation was not there. So,
Mm,
like, that tells me that if they went and did a workout that had different grip elements, they might think that they're going to do really well, but it could have suffered unbeknownst to them, right? Because they didn't have the foundation. So now we have to build up the foundation for it.
yep. Yep. Definitely.
Um,
Definitely.
so how fast to run in the GPPs? I would always say like zone-ish 3, nothing too hard, maybe not even to threshold, maybe, but
Mm,
not like past threshold. Try to make it whatever run you can hold consistently for multiple rounds. If it is a multiple round one, try to have as little variance between those runs as you can get. And over speed training, I'm assuming they're just talking about like faster stuff higher than threshold. We do it very rarely.
mm.
We do it maybe like with strides a couple times a week. That's
Yep.
about all the overspeed training. And then we do one overspeed workout a week out from a big event
Yeah.
where it's where
Just
you do like 2 minutes of really fast stuff.
yeah. Just on that, listeners, overspeed, as Anthony just said, we do strides that are at the end of an easy run. Um, and that's speed economy, that's speed work, but these are 20 to 30 second strides, potentially on an incline, to really work on our efficiency. And then, as Anthony just said, 10 days out is the only workout that I do that is over my LT2 pace. And it's pretty much it's the same. It's very similar to the same workout every time, and it should be. But that's the only time. That's the only time to for me personally to go over my my threshold.
Yep. And we do that because so like the only time you actually reach that stride that we were just talking about, your running economy, right? We do it in the strides at the end of easy runs. We do it in the cut downs whenever you have a cut down workout. Sometimes you have surges, but mostly those are really the only time we ever pick up the pace outside of
Yep.
your threshold, which we are just, I mean, we just hammer that threshold over and over a lot.
Yep. Just
Um,
quickly before we move on, it's just because I'm a little bit critical of this, right? Just for the listeners, I see, and everyone probably sees, like everyone doing HYROX workouts and repetitions of like 8x1Ks or that type of stuff, and people are doing them at fast pace, very fast pace. I don't run I don't run a kilometer faster than 3:25 before a race, and my Vegas, sorry, not my Vegas, my Hong Kong and my Amsterdam like splits were roughly a 3:28 to a 3:30. But I'm not doing it. Now, where I'm going here is, you know, what's happening to your body, Anthony, just quickly, if you're doing workouts that are involved like 8x1K with 90-second break at like 3:10 or 3:05 as an example, like really aggressive pace. What's happening?
oh, why don't we do that? Well,
Yeah, like why don't we? And also what's going to happen to
so
you in terms of the inefficiency of doing that?
Well, that's so hard. Like if you did even 8x1K or 10x1K or whatever it is on that rest, that's a full like hard workout. We have a high volume program. Um, if you do that and you do that multiple times a week, you're taking away from your ability to do other stuff in that day, right? If you did a workout that was 10 by 1 kilometers or 8 by 1 kilometers on 90 seconds rest, you're not getting all that in. That's taking away from basically any other work you want to do. But
Correct.
because
Yeah.
we don't go above your threshold, that's a full day like that feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Like you're not run
Yeah.
down by the end of it. And then the next day is an easy day.
And
If you
if I
had,
ran those 1 kilometers at 3:10, 3:15, I wouldn't have been available to do that on Wednesday.
yep. And we're actually going to talk about this later. So that's it. I'm going to not talk about
Yep.
GK's program for now. We're going to talk about this in a little bit when we get to like how do you pace the easy runs and why do you pace them that way?
Yep.
Zone one versus zone two. So we'll get that. But before we do that, if you guys haven't already, if you get an opportunity to go like, subscribe, and review this podcast on whatever streaming platform you're listening to, again, we really appreciate it. It helps out a lot. If you could take less than a minute, if you just press those three little dots, go to the show, hit ratings, reviews. We've gotten a lot recently, and I think it really shows and it helps. And we'll find a way soon to keep it up so we can keep bringing you guys just the best content we possibly can.
That's it. That's it.
Um, JK, I want to talk a little bit about because I told you when I was packing and doing computer work
Oh
and stuff,
yeah.
I was packing everything up because we were moving. And I got on the computer. I told you I had about 3 hours of stuff to do on the computer. I hadn't worked out that day. And I told my wife, I said, Lauren, I haven't worked out. Should I go run or should I do this computer work? She's like, well, why don't you just do something every 30 minutes and then you can keep doing your computer work. But that way, at least you get movement in. Like, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Because I do that all the time. Like, I used to do like, okay, all day today, every hour on the hour, I'm going to do 20 push-ups or,
Yeah.
30 squats, whatever it was. But it's a good way to get volume in, spread out over a time. I used to call it greasing the groove, where like you just keep that movement pattern. It's nothing that's going to like stress you out, make you go fast, but it keeps you moving the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So Lauren told me, why don't you just do 30 push-ups and 50 air squats every 30 minutes? And I was like, all right,
Why not?
sounds good. And that's a good way to get volume in. So 30 push-ups and 50 air squats doesn't take me a long time. I did my first
No,
set.
it doesn't.
I did my first set and I text JK like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm not going to go run today. I'm just going to do this on the interim while like I'm packing and doing computer work. And so anybody who's pressed for time, this is a fantastic way just to get extra volume. You don't have to go hard. You don't have to like stress it out. And I do 30 push-ups because it's a set that I know I can do unbroken every time, especially if I
Yeah.
have 30 minutes rest in between. Maybe for you, that's 10. Maybe for you, that's 5, like whatever it is, but it's a way to get some volume in. So if you don't have the ability to get to the gym that day, if you're a little bit crowded in terms of your schedule, like just do simple movements. I can hop on the ground and do 10 push-ups between meetings. I can
Yeah.
do some air squats at my desk while I think about something. I stand up and do some. And so what I ended up doing is I did 30 push-ups and 50 air squats. And I had text JK and was like, oh, just did my first set, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. And then JK starts egging me on. I bet you can
Yeah.
go under 2 minutes. And I was like, what? Well, he didn't text me back for half an hour. So I sent my
Second
next
set.
set just to keep myself accountable. I sent it to him. And I was like, oh, did my second one in like 2:06. And then
And
he's
then I
like, I
was
bet you
like,
can go
oh.
under 2 minutes. And I was like, I'm not going for time, but having that in my head, the next set I went a little faster. And I did like a 1:48. And he's like, yeah,
Yep.
boom. And then he texts me back, how fast can you actually go? And you gotta think these are every 30 minutes I'm doing these things. So then the next set, I was like, okay, well, thanks a lot, JK. I wasn't trying to make these go fast, but now I'm like speeding through. I'm maintaining good form. Like I keep my arms above my head, and I was like making sure that I was getting that extension on those squats. So I ended up doing 30 push-ups and 50 air squats, and I ended up doing 5 total rounds. And my fastest
Yeah.
round after JK egged me on was 1 minute and 28 seconds. So I did 30
Yeah.
push-ups and
Wow.
50 air squats in a minute 28.
I don't know how you did that.
I think the push-ups was
I was
about I think the push-ups took me about 27, 26 seconds.
Gonna say, yeah, yeah.
And
And
then
then
it
you,
was just like the transition and about 50 air squats in a minute.
yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very impressive. I, you asked me, what do you think I could do? I could not do that. I'd probably go a 145, I reckon.
Okay.
30
Well,
push-ups, 50 air
here's a
squats.
good
Good
question
time.
then. So if you're looking for something that's about a 2 minute workout, you're going to do it every half hour, every hour, because you have a full day of stuff and you're not going to be able to get your workouts in. You're trying to maintain health, you're trying to stay healthy, or you're trying to like keep your movement patterns. What would you do? I would do 30 push-ups and 50 air squats because I can do that set unbroken. If you're looking for
Yep.
something for you, JK, that's a minute and a half to 2 minutes long, that you could do repeatedly, that would give you a lot of volume, what would you end up doing?
In my head right now, the first thing that comes into mind, I'd do a 2 minute AMRAP of 10 squats, three burpees. 10 squats, three burpees for 2 minutes. I wonder how many rounds you'd get in 2 minutes.
I'd get a lot of
10,
those. But
yeah,
but see,
10
that's
squats,
something that
three
like
burpees.
something
Yeah,
that's under 2 minutes that you don't have to like actually stress out for. Like not, like I ended up going as fast as I could, but if I took every single one of those things at a 2 minute pace, I would never have even broken a sweat, right?
yeah, correct.
So
Yeah,
if you're at work and you can't break a sweat or something, these are little movement patterns that can keep you going. And I think it's really important for people to understand, like, you don't have to, not every movement, not every workout has to be this big, sexy workout. It has to be like,
yeah.
it can just be something to keep you healthy, keep you moving, um,
Like as
get
an
you out of your
example, that
chair. Yeah.
yeah, but like what you did that night doing work, you didn't train that day or you didn't move that day. You decided that your job was the your computer work was the priority. However, I'm gonna still move. I'm gonna still get some volume in. 5 rounds of 30. So you did 300. You did 150 push-ups and 300 squats. Like,
250
oh,
squats.
is that
Yeah.
right? 250 squats, right? Like, bang, like that's a good good little volume session. So yeah, like yeah, it's you can always make the time, right? You can
Yeah.
always make the time.
Absolutely. And that's another thing is like maybe you don't have a lot of time. Don't feel pressure on yourself like, oh, I have an hour run. I can't get an hour run in, but maybe you can do 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's daunting. When I like try to do machine work really well, I was like at the time a few years back, I was coaching in the evenings, some CrossFit classes, and I wouldn't have time for my own workout because I don't work out when I coach, right? So, but what I would do is my classes were ending about 5 or 6 minutes before an hour. So there's a 5 or 6 minute transition before the next class. I would hop on the rower and do 1,000 meters of rowing. Boom.
wow,
I had 1,000 meters.
yeah,
By the end of my coaching, I was 5,000 meters into rowing, right?
yeah. There
So
you go.
like that's one way you can do that. And I got a 5K of rowing in, and yeah, it's broken up, but it's just little bits. Take it little bits at
Little
a
bits at a
time.
time.
It really, really helps. And the volume that way, when you're doing little bit, little bit, little bit, it stacks. It stacks really
Yeah,
well. And
yeah.
the way I kind of like to think about it, and maybe this might go over a lot of people's heads, if you ever played the game Zelda, Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 when you were a kid,
Nope.
big when I was a kid, when you get
Zelda.
Epona, the pony, right? There's a pony that you can ride in this game so you can go faster. And whenever you jump on this horse to go ride, it's got 5 carrots that appear at the top. And if you press
Yeah.
the buttons, you like 1 carrot goes away, you run faster. 2 carrots go away, you
Faster.
go
Yeah.
faster, right? And if as long as you don't take the carrots all the way out, they replenish pretty easily. Like 1 carrot, if you just hit it once, it'll go, and then the carrot will come back, and then you'll slow down. But you can press it again, and then you have the carrot, right? And it goes and goes and goes.
Wow.
Well, if that's all you're doing, you're just using 1 carrot up, you're replenished, you're back to full strength. Like it's very easy if you do that
Easy
intermittently.
to.
And that's
I
also another
like
thing is
this.
like if you use all 5 carrots, in order to like get anything back to start again, you have to like wait a long duration of time for all five of the carrots to appear before, because you don't get one back at a time. But if you only use a little bit, you never go all the way, empty the tank, then you're gonna make it.
So thank you to Zelda on what
Yeah, used to play it.
Nintendo.
It was, I think it was the Nintendo 64 is what we played it on,
There
but
you go.
it was a
I
great
love that.
game. If you
I
haven't
love
played
that
it, don't
analogy.
worry about it. I don't play video games anymore, but I used to when I was like 12 years old, and that was a game I really liked playing.
That's a great analogy, though. It's a great analogy with the carrots.
All
Yeah.
right. Uh, moving on, we got a question about easy runs, and last week I believe we talked about zone two and like what is kind of like what do we do for our zone two, and I realized, it's more of a question about our easy runs. Like how much easy running do we do? How much easy work overall do we do? And the answer to that, at least like when I program, and you can correct me about yours, JK, but I do about 80%. 75 to 80% is what we would call easy. And
Yep.
so the question is, well, easy, is that zone one? Is that zone two? Like, what is easy? And here's our favorite answer. It depends, right? Because more advanced athletes like yourself, right? You have a very low resting heart rate. And if we were actually going by zones and heart rate zones, you have to push a lot harder than the intention of an easy run is to get into zone two,
Yep.
right? So when we talk about advanced athletes doing easy stuff, I'd say probably only about 10 to 15% of your easy is in zone two. Otherwise, it's in zone one.
Yeah.
Whereas like newer runnings, people building their volume up and stuff like that, when they do an easy run, I'd say at least 50-50, probably, maybe even more, maybe the exact opposite, maybe 80-20 in terms of the total that we talked about easy runs that they're doing, only like 80% can get into zone two because and the rest can be in zone one of that easy because it's easier for them to get there. It's still an easy run, right?
Yeah.
But it's their heart rate and everything, their physiological response can get there easier than a more advanced athlete who you have to push a little bit hard to get your heart rate, get your body to respond to the zone two.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the difference though if you go, okay, I've got an easy run today. I'm meant to be sorry, I've got a zone two easy run. I'm going to call it a zone two easy run. What's more important, Anthony? Okay, looking at your heart rate and going, all right, I need to be in zone two versus just feeling what is easy for you on that day and just going out and doing that. What do what do you do there?
Right. So
Look at heart rate or
yeah, we like need to go off feel. You need to be like everything is day to day, right? And unless you are so dialed into your training that you know what you're like, my resting heart rate average is this, my HRV is this, like I'm going off of heart rate based on this every single day, and I can adjust those zones day by day because I know, oh, my resting heart rate's been coming up or it's been going down. Unless you are that dialed in, everything you do should be off feel for your easy, right?
the
Easy
easy run?
feel might be zone two sometimes. And that's like what I talked about, your 10 to 15%, but that's a more advanced athlete. Most
Yeah,
people will be 50-50 or even on the other way, 80% zone two, 20% zone one. Um, because they just need less of a response, less of an effort to get to that pace. And the reason that we talk about this, the reason we do this is because it will keep you fresher for your thresholds and speed workouts that we actually do, right?
yeah,
So why we're not looking for you to burn up as a more advanced athlete yourself, JK. We're not looking for you to burn up into zone two just because it's an easy run and you think easy is zone two. We don't want these easy runs to be taking away from your thresholds, from your speeds, right? We'll run the strides afterwards. But like that's not the point of the workout. And
yeah.
actually, what I did notice, because this person had asked about intensity over the time that they're running and stuff, and like why wouldn't they add more intensity to things? Uh, there's been studies out, and more benefit is seen from the mitochondria and capillary adaptations, which are more beneficial to your aerobic block work when you actually extend the number of days you're running, you're training. So if you're only running 2 days a week, you get more benefits. Forget about adding intensity. Go to 4 days a week. That's more beneficial than adding the intensity for the 2 days a week you are running. If you're running
Wow.
4 days a week, go to 6 days a week. Run 6 days a week
Yeah.
because that's more beneficial than adding the intensity piece, right?
So you're actually saying it's more beneficial to actually add in an extra day, add in an extra run that is easy versus actually adding in or trying to add in that intensity that is going to like not allow you to back up the next day.
Yeah.
It's more about it's more about adding in an easy to get more days in the first place.
Extend the number of days you're actually running, extend the number of days you're actually working,
Right.
instead
Yeah.
of uh, adding intensity to certain pieces of the day or
Yeah.
certain intensities because I want higher intensity or I want a higher zone work. I can only do this. And now I understand if you only can work out like 4 days a week or if you can only do something that time for time and schedule wise. But like we said a little bit earlier, go to those unique workouts, those grease the groove ones where you just do everything every couple hours or every 30 minutes or 60 minutes, you do something like add those in. But it's better for your capillary and mitochondria adaptations to get more days in than it is to do higher intensity.
There you go, mate. I love this because I get thrown this question a lot about intensity and why are we doing so much easy stuff? What if you're a HYROX athlete and you're listening to this? All right, just a quickly, like another question is like, well, Anthony, like I don't run easy in a HYROX race. I feel like I need to do more zone 4 and 5 because that's what I'm in for in my race. Like, why aren't we doing more of that stuff?
So it goes back to the same thing we've talked about all the time. Consistency is key. You're not going to get gains after like 1 week. Like you might see some incremental stuff, but it's if you want to have longevity, if you want health, if you want to be around doing this when you're older and you want to keep doing this, you need consistency. Keep going. The the physiological responses, the responses of your systems for the mitochondria and the capillaries, like those adaptations give you more benefit than anything, but it takes time, right?
Yeah,
So, like I've said, like our workouts are almost 80% easy, like easy pace for everything for 80% of the week, 80% of the month. Um, you don't need to add the intensity or the higher zones to those things. Like just do more of it for a little bit of time. Like add up
yeah,
now, build into it. I'm not saying like jump into a bunch of volume. Don't jump into a bunch of make it. We've talked about before on here, like easy, 4 minutes, 5 minutes at a time, like extend things you're doing, get on a bike before you go run, those types of things. But more like doing that aerobic work very steady will give you more benefit over time than trying to like spike and spike and spike.
spike. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it allows you to do more because
Love
if I
that.
go easy today, I can go easy tomorrow. I can go easy the next day. If I go hard
Yeah,
today, what if I can't do anything tomorrow? And the next day I have such bad DOMs that I can't do anything again. Then the easy person has already overtaken and overbuilt me because they're able to consistently work.
yeah, yeah. I love that.
Yep.
Love that.
All right. One more time here, just if you guys get a chance to review us. But the station tips. We had a question. We had actually a request from someone that said that they would love if we could. I want to pull up exactly what they said. Um, Hello, for the next Q&A or ask me anything for the hybrid coaching podcast, would you and or JK give station tips in a race? What are some key points or keys to move efficiently through each station? I know this is very individualized, but are there things for general athletes that could help be more efficient in the race? for example, on lunges, foot dragging, not fully stopping. Anyway, if this is not a good topic to cover, no problem. So they're asking for efficiency tips. And so the way that we're going to go about this, and I appreciate this person that said, appreciate all the information in podcast. I've rated it 5 stars and still loving the hybrid engine programming. So they are on the hybrid engine. So the way I want to go about this is we're going to do station tips in a series. We're going to do one station at a time, starting with wall balls and working our way back. So we'll
Sounds
start
good
with
to
wall
me.
balls. And what is, JK, your best tip for wall balls?
I think the only thing that I can say is that sorry, not the only thing. First thing I'll say is it's the only station, and I'm taking this from you, by the way. You've said this to me. It's the only station that you want to open the floodgates. You want to feel that lactate. You want to feel the burn because you've only got 100 wall balls left. And then if needed, you can crawl to that finish line. It's the only station that I truly believe that it's mind over matter to hang on to that ball and try to hang on to it for as long as possible. It's the only station that it's okay to feel that aggressive lactate burn. Every other station is
I,
different because you still got time. You still got time before the finish line. You still got time to try to make sure that you're not redlining.
right. There, there's that old, like, you're about to finish. Like, you don't need anything at the finish line. So this is the end of the race. This is the very last thing. Like, this is where you can empty the tank. You don't have to feel good coming out of here. You don't have to like run hard coming out of here. Like, you can go all out on this station.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so just like form wise, if you guys haven't, check your form. And one of the best ways is I like to kettlebell goblet squat. Hold it far away from your body and squat down, right? It'll counterbalance you, make sure you're reaching depth. And then slowly, 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 as you get better, you can start to bring that kettlebell back into your chest until you're holding it right here. If you can hold a kettlebell right here, that's probably overweighted, 35 pounds for men would be a fine kettlebell. That's a 16-kilo kettlebell. That's easy enough to just to hold and feel that goblet. Keep your elbows flared out a little bit to help with that shoulder burn. Even though you're not going to do that during a wall ball, keep them like active. Okay. In terms of your stance, do what's natural for you. Obviously, I'm not going to adjust your squat stance. Everybody's different based on their anatomy. But if you are doing back squats, this form that you're going to take is not necessarily going to be like a low bar back squat because then you're going to be too hinged over, right? If you
Yeah.
can actually make it more like a front squat or a high bar back squat, would be considered a high bar back squat, that's going to be a lot closer to the form you're going to use for these squats in your wall ball, right? And when you hold a wall ball, keep your elbows tight and in, okay, underneath you, because you want to have a good support. You always have 3 points of contact, hand, chin, or chest, whatever it is, wherever you're catching it at. Throw the ball up as you stand out. You could take the squat as slow or fast, however you want. But as you extend out of the squat, like as you're about to reach extension, give yourself a little pop, right? A little hip pop. Not like you're going to jump,
Yeah.
but like that final stand is where your
Yeah.
power comes from. If you think about it if you were riding a bike, you don't bike with your knees up to your ears, right? You have that little boom, that little push
Boom.
at the
Yeah.
bottom every time you're on the bike. So that's what you're doing with 2 feet as you stand up out of the squat, right? And I want to actually throw either my chest upward toward the target or like that chin, that third point of contact to bring the ball, like get it accelerated. The more acceleration I can have, like in a push press type position, off my body and through my legs, takes the pressure off my shoulders. Okay. And
Correct.
I don't,
Yeah.
your arms, remember what we talk about, core to extremity. Everything is the core, like between your like knees or your nipple to nuts that we talked about, right? Like start there,
Yeah.
start at the hip, work your way out. More
Yeah.
powerful muscles, the bigger muscle groups, quads, glutes, hamstrings, those are all bigger than your delts and your traps and your triceps. And while those can be strong, it's better to use as much of the big muscle groups as you can before you get to the smaller ones and then work your way out.
Yeah.
So I want to actually pop up as I go, and then I throw the ball. There's a lot of difference here. If you're somebody who is doing a bunch of wall balls and your arms fatigue early, you can actually do like a big rainbow and let the blood come back, and then you can catch the ball low. Or some people will actually like keep their arms up or reach back up and try to like bring the ball into them, right? So they guide the ball back down, and then you start your next rep. That is a very standard, like one process after another type of way to do wall balls. You can
Yeah.
speed your wall balls up. If you didn't know, like you need to be very proficient at the basic wall ball movement and getting from one to the next. But you can actually speed wall balls up. The way you speed wall balls up is you actually can start to squat or you reach high for the ball and you start to squat as the ball comes down to you. You pull it with you, hit the bottom, and you're directly back in. If you want to see the absolute best person at wall balls is Miriam Van Roor used to do them, and she would actually be at the bottom of her squat by the time she fully caught the ball, and then she'd be accelerating back up. She could do a wall
Yeah.
ball in like a second and a half, and we'll actually get into that. I have a little stat in my next thing about that.
About wobbles. Yeah.
Yep, but how do you get better at wall balls? Like I talked about, the goblet squats are amazing for them. You can use them as buyouts for things. You want to understand what your maximum ability at them is. So, what is your maximum set? And when you start for your wall balls, what you actually want to do is if like the most wall balls I could do absolutely fresh would be, call it, if your ability is 70, I don't want to go over 70% of that. So like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
means my
That's big.
maximum set to begin with wouldn't be more than 49. I'd probably actually do 50, but you wouldn't do more reps than that, right?
Yeah.
And then your next set, I always do a little bit less than that even. So 70% rule, you keep taking about 70% of what you just did.
70%. I
Um,
like that. Yeah.
and so if after two sets, if I could do a maximum of 70 wall balls while I'm fresh, my first set in the race is going to be about 50 reps. My next set in the race is probably going to be about 35 reps. And then I only have 15 left, so I'm going to close it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I just to finish off this topic, I personally think one of the biggest things that I see with HYROX athletes is that their actual their stance is too far from the actual rig, right? Meaning, you're probably likely to get underneath that ball if you actually take a if you actually stand a little bit closer to that rig. Now, big note, you've got to trial that. And it's all about in your training, trial how far away you want to actually stand. Don't take that like literally me saying stand right up close. Trial it in your training. Try different ways as well, because there's not just one way to do a consistent, efficient wall ball. It might be different for me versus Anthony. So make sure you just trial it in your training. Just quickly as well, I had the privilege to see Tia Claire Toomey do sets of wall balls the other day, and the way that she was moving was just so efficient. She was getting underneath that ball so much. She was underneath it, catching it with her hands very narrow as opposed to out wide on that ball. So she was getting underneath it. She was very close to the rig. But as I just said, make
And
sure you're trialing it
I
in
mean,
training.
we'll do it in. If anybody wants to see amazing wall balls, look at Lauren, my wife. We're gonna get
Yeah.
into Lauren's love corner here now because She is the queen of wall balls. If you go to the top 20 all-time times of wall balls on HYROX's website, you can go to the HYROX Pro and Elite people. You go to the women. The top 20 all-time times, I'm going to take away the top two times because one of them says 36 seconds and another's a minute 07. So those obviously are like mistakes or errors. But the top 20 times of women doing wall balls, 10 of them belong to Miriam Van Roor, and who I just talked about. Miriam, 10
Right.
of the top 20 times, 2 minutes, 55 seconds to 3 minutes, 10 seconds. She has amazing wall balls. Like she
So
did.
the best time is,
Her best time is 2 minutes and 55 seconds for wall balls. That means running in through the arch, doing 100 wall balls, and getting across the finish line in
oh my God.
2:55. So Miriam obviously has amazing wall balls. She's since gone on to CrossFit. I don't know if we'll see her back in a HYROX, but it'd be great too. But 10 of the top 20 times belong to Miriam. Four of the top 20 times belong to Lauren, who you
Wow.
can still watch at all the majors, like crushing these wall balls. Her
Yeah.
times in the top 20 range from 305 to 311. So those are just fantastic. And then here, like the other six times in that belong to Bonnie Loman, Tamarind Robinson, Stephanie Spitz, Emily Webb, Brid Stepper, and Michaela Norman. And obviously,
All right.
Michaela has she has a single great time, but she's done great times before. Obviously, just because Michaela came into the sport and in her first race broke the world record. So she was fantastic and had done unbroken wall balls. But obviously, these people are doing unbroken wall balls. But if you watch their form, the speed and the wall balls that they do them are just fantastic. Um, and so if you want to watch some really good wall balls, watch Lauren do wall balls. She's great at them and gets usually very few uh, no reps, even when she does them. I think she's done multiple sets of 100 in races where she doesn't even get a no rep out of 100 reps.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
see those on the counter and stuff. But if you want to watch some great wall balls, yeah, definitely watch her. It's just fantastic. And since we're on the Lauren Love corner, I just want to say, if you didn't watch it this last weekend, the DekaFit World Championships happened. That's DekaFit, Deka Mile, Deka Strong. Do they have Dekas in your neck of the woods now? I know you were going to do one, but they should have them now, right?
Yeah, they've only got a couple. They've only got a couple. I'm pretty sure they've got a couple more next year, which is great. But she crushed it. She
Yep.
crushed it, man. Yeah.
She won the DekaFit World Championships in a world record time, breaking her own world record. Thing I found the most impressive about it, she ran a 17:12 5K in the middle of the race.
That's crazy.
17:12 5K. I looked up
Which,
the 5K time for the men and the women in that race. She was second overall, only to Dylan Scott. Dylan
yeah.
Scott ran a
By what, like
17:07.
5 seconds?
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
5 seconds
Yeah.
off of Dylan Scott, who also won his DekaFit. She was only 5 seconds behind him in terms of all the running. Just fantastic. Like we talked about compromise running, that is some running economy right there. Being able
Yeah,
to maintain
absolutely it
that
is.
pace for every single one of the 10 500-meter runs.
And like, not that I've done a Deca fit, but the intensity of a Deca fit is definitely higher than a HYROX. So her being able to do a 17 minute and change like 5K is just phenomenal.
Yeah. And I know you got to run, so we'll be wrapping it up here. I just want to say some of the HYROX people who have did really well at this Deka Fit and Deka World Championships. Tara Jackson went 4 for 4 in her races, Deka Mile, Deka Strong, and Deka Mile teams and Deka Strong teams. So she did fantastic. Dylan Scott, obviously, with the Deka Fit World Championship win.
That's
Grayson
it, yeah.
Kilgore has ran a couple HYROX races. He came in second in both the Deka Fit and the Deka Mile. Rylan Shadeg wins the Deka Mile. Colin Stiefer takes third in the Deka Mile. And in the Deka Strong, Colin Stiefer wins overall. Who Colin was in the Elite 15 last year, got that roll down the same day he arrived in France, was told he gets to
Yeah,
run
that's
HYROX
right.
World Championships. So just amazing job. But obviously, I just want to shout out to my wife who became Deka World Champion, breaking her world record time with a 31:51.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. She can't, she, yeah, just quickly, I spoke to her during the week, Anthony, and I'm amazed at how her I'm amazed at her mindset more than anything, and how much she loves what she's doing and how much she's grateful of what she's doing as well. You know, like you could tell, like it's a part of her life, and rightly so now, and she just loves it, and that's what I personally now that I know her personally as well. You can tell it's more than just a race and training for a race as well. So no, kudos to Lauren, but also kudos to you for being the support system as well. And she would probably say the same thing, right, Anthony?
So I might clip on the end of this podcast if I'm allowed to, her interview from after the DekaFit race. I found it just
Yeah,
absolutely
definitely.
amazing and inspiring. So if you guys get a chance to listen to that, that's on the OCR report. The very end, it's after the men's race. Lauren's interview was just, I think, fantastic.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, I gotta run, mate. Literally, I've got to go do my 12-kilometer easy run, with some strides at the end. But guys, thank you for listening once again. Like and subscribe if you have the time. And Merry Christmas as well. We'll still be, I'm looking at you, Anthony. We'll still be podcasting next week, which will be great, which will be next Friday. And if you ever want to shoot me a message about training, about racing, anything, hit me up on Instagram, jk.jameskelly on Instagram.
Cool. All right, JK, thank you. Yeah, guys, if you have any questions, comments, we love to hear from you. We've gotten a lot more the last few weeks, and we might have some stuff coming down the pipeline. So keep a lookout, like and subscribe and review if you get a chance, and helps get out there. If everybody just shares it with one person, that's how this thing will spread. We appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to the Hybrid Coaching Podcast. If you'd like to get in contact with James Kelly to seek out some coaching or for general questions and inquiries, please go to Instagram and find him at jk.jameskelly. Or you can find him and Georgie Vesley on YouTube at James Kelly and Georgie Vesley. If you'd like to contact Anthony or seek out programming or coaching questions from the Hybrid Engine, please go to Instagram at the Hybrid Engine or at a Wild Parasini. Thank you again. Have a great day.